Today it's about Plunet, and this is actually a webinar that we are holding in honor of the Plunet Summit this month, where we also participated. And what we're going to do is go through a couple of slides before and then get our hands dirty with a couple of demos. Those demos have been pre-recorded because actually when it comes to demoing so many systems, it's a bit complicated to do. And we will also have a little bit of a poll. So let's get started. So first of all, typical question, what is BeLazy? BeLazy is a secure middleware that connects vendor portals, translation management systems, emails, and other systems into business management systems by automating the registration and the management of projects. So the idea is that there is a lot of automation within systems such as Plunet. And what we're doing is that we are extending that capability in order to bridge the gap between you and your customers' systems. And we do this in a way that most of the time your customer doesn't have to do anything. So we are not always using the APIs where customers need to give you access, but most of the time, what we're trying to do is that this is a seamless thing that you can use on your own. So before we get really started, I see that we've got 18 participants at the moment. So I would like to launch the first poll, which is about the Plunet usage. And here are a couple of questions about whether you are using Plunet and whether you are using Cat Manager modules and whether you have customers who use Plunet. Lovely. Most of you have answered the questions, so I'm waiting like 5 seconds for the last answer to come in. And let's share the results. So 2 of you are not Plunet users. I recommend that you come to other webinars, and the rest are Plunet users. And most of you have been using it for a long time. So if you see something that I didn't set up correctly, let me know. The Cat Manager module usage is actually interesting because 8 companies here are using the Cat Manager, one type or another, whereas 7 are not using the Cat Manager. Interesting, like please share the reasons or share how you work if you feel like it. And then finally, most of your customers don't use Plunet, so it's a system for your own. Even though this is the case, just because I prepared for this webinar, we are going to start by connecting 2 Plunet instances. So thank you very much for answering this. And then let's go into the automation types. I mean, what I think is that there are 3 types of automation in the industry. The linguistic automation is things like machine translation, it's things like tagging of the texts in translation management systems. This is not something BeLazy does. Process automation within systems is what the automation manager of Plunet does, but there is also obviously other automations in the system. So this is the area that we keep to Plunet, which we call a business management system. And transaction automation is what happens between systems. It's like between your customer and your own system and back. Within BeLazy, there are 2 Plunet connectors. As I mentioned, the business management system is what connects into your Plunet. And the vendor portal automation is the part that connects into your customer's Plunet. So if you've got customers using Plunet and you are using Plunet as your own system, you can connect those 2 Plunets so there is an automated job flow between the 2 systems. And then 7 people among you said that you are not using integrations between a CAT tool and Plunet. And here BeLazy has like an alternative, which is not something that we want to take over from Plunet, but our approach is a bit different because what we realized is a lot of systems like MemSource or XTM or others have a lot of connections, a lot of integrations, which is a good selling point for customers. And because of this, we thought it was a better idea that instead of having Plunet as the boss and creating projects in these systems, it would be better to get the project started in the other system and create it in Plunet. So this way we are able to leverage things like the MemSource widgets, which are like very simplified customer portals by projects offered by different connectors, including the WordPress connector, and also packages that you receive. This I want to show you later. So what are the automation capabilities of Plunet, of BeLazy, sorry. We can automate the project creation, which means that the project comes in, we monitor the customer systems or your own system, and there is a new project, and we create that automatically in Plunet. We monitor these jobs, these workflows, as you will see, for deliveries and for vendor assignment. And we also enable combining different projects into a single Plunet order, such as a monthly project, for example, or combining a translation step and the review step that comes separately from your customer system into one workflow in Plunet. We also have another API that some of our Plunet users like, because creating an integration with Plunet is not a simple task. So what we do is that we also make our project creation capabilities available through an API. So if, for example, you have a business case where you need to, let's say, translate Twitter messages or something coming in a CRM in an automated manner, there are some very easy ways to do that. If you're interested in more details, please get in touch, because this is not something I'm going to show in the webinar today. But if you're interested, you can also have a look at api.belazy.cat, and you're also able to look at, for example, the Integromat app that we have created. So how does this work? How does the approach work? The project is generated first in the translation management system or the vendor portal, either by you or your customer. This can be done through automations, or it can be done manually by a project manager. And then if you want to split, for example, packages into different batches, you can do that. Then the project gets inserted into Plunet via BeLazy. So files are sometimes downloaded, sometimes not, depends on the system. For example, from another portal of Plunet, we definitely download the files and upload the files. But let's say with MemoQ, we don't download and upload files. Then we are monitoring these jobs in this order, in this item in Plunet. And based on the rules configured as you will see it, the vendors are put back into the original system if there is an original system with vendor support. And finally, when the vendor delivers in Plunet, we also close their job in the relevant system. So there is no need for the project managers to work with the other system, and there is very little need for the vendors to do so. So what does this generate as business value? The project management time is decreased significantly by 30 to 90%. It's never 100% because you always have to keep an eye on the project. So the supervision is an important thing. But if you are leveraging a lot of the capabilities of BeLazy, then you are able to save very significant amount of time. This means that you are actually able to sell better versus the competition and sell real continuous localization, and also enable continuous localization across the supply chain. So suppose you are working with Plunet and you've got customers who translate into 10 languages, and you want to outsource this to 10 different single language vendors who in turn outsource it to translators internally or freelancers. You are able to give the same integrations as what you're using also to your vendors. So basically, through the entire supply chain, you can have like a no-touch workflow in project management, which is speeding up the process with these tiny projects very, very significantly. And we also give you some technical sales consultancy. So if you're interested in having us help selling more, then we also are game. So what's the evaluation process? And then we are going to get our hands dirty with some demos. First of all, you get familiar with automation. I mean, you are here, and we appreciate that very much. Thank you for joining. And then we have a meeting. So in this meeting, we discuss your actual needs, and we discuss like how much of this can be covered by automation, how to prepare for that. We learn about you, and we try to learn a little bit more about your workflows, because in some companies, workflows are very standardized. In other companies, they have been very much geared towards individual customers. And we are trying to give you some advice here. Then we run into the proof of concept, which is basically not a fully configured automation, but it is the first step. It shows that things work. And this is a week's process. In a week, we actually give you the time to decide whether you think there is enough to gain from BeLazy. And after that, we start working together using the smallest BeLazy package, which is the Be Prepared package. And this includes unlimited onboarding, unlimited consultancy. So we want to hold hands. This is very important for us. And we just need to make sure that everybody understands that, like, working with different systems, you can have different challenges, and these take some time to solve. I would say that my experience personally is that if a single language vendor works for their vendor portals in, I don't know, for companies like RWS or vLocalize or other Plunet users, this is usually very fast, and it can be started very quickly. Whereas with multilingual vendors, usually the problems are a little bit different. And sometimes there are certain needs for steps that have not been taken when it comes to deciding whether to work online or work offline, or like tiny things, like, for example, how many analysis do you need to create? Do you need to create one analysis for the customer and one for the vendor as well, or not? So what are the integrations we currently have? This is something that's available today in the public version. We integrate with 4 document-based TMSs and 3 development-oriented TMSs. MemSource is actually the integration that we are probably the most proud of at this point. It is working like really fast, and it's also working with continuous job workflows. We had a release about a month ago where we introduced this. MemoQ is something that allows you to work both with your customers' MemoQ installation and with your own. The only caveat here is that if it's a subverter workflow, then it doesn't work, just because we are using the web interface and it doesn't appear there. SmartLink is something that's a very popular integration among BeLazy users, and it's very operational. So it's actually the system that moves the most projects among those systems here. Global Link is TransPerfect's own system. This is sometimes needing a little bit of an attention, but it's actually doing the job. And then we've got also development-oriented TMSs. Transifex, we are actually very proud of this integration, because Transifex has no easy way of working with LSPs, and we have bridged this gap. Localize was our first, and it's actually a pretty solid one. You will also see it in the demo. And finally, Phrase is one of those systems where we are also able to import and export XLIF. So if you happen to work with these systems, you're welcome to try it. And some of the vendor portal integrations, we work with Global Link, obviously, of TransPerfect's version, XTRF-Plunet of the standard ones, vLocalize Junction, Lionbridge, 3 systems, LCX, TMS, and their Jira system, Moravia, 2 systems, Symfony and Simlight. And then we've got Transline, where we are actually preparing for a T-Blue integration, and Translated, which is also working. So let's move on. And let's have another poll real quick here. One second, I'm having a little bit of a difficulty here. Apparently, we are not having this other poll right now. Sorry about that. Maybe after the session, I can look into it, what happened. So before we move on, are there any questions? Please feel free to ask. If there are no questions, I will just move ahead with some of our videos here. So 1 second until I've started. Okay. Just sharing the screen again. Let's do the entire screen. You can see my screen, right? Thank you. Thank you, Samila. So let's have a look at the first use case. My customer is using a Plunet instance. You can see that this is a Plunet 7.4. I am a vendor, and I would like to automatically get these projects into my own Plunet instance. So first thing I do is that I log in just to show you what I've got here. You can see here my dashboard. This is a standard thing for the vendors. And you can see some projects here, including this last one by Giveaways SL. And you could also see that the decimal comma was used instead of decimal point. This is something that will be important in the configuration. Now, this is my own system, and I'm logging it as Paul Leiter, of course, everybody's favorite project manager. And here, just a little bit of a preparation. First of all, you need to have workflow templates. And here I'm going to use 2 workflow templates. One is called Translation Editing Proofreading. And what you see here is that in the workflow editor, this has 3 different steps. And in the description, I put these different steps. This is very important because otherwise we cannot read the steps. And this is needed for the integration to work. So you always need to put it into the description, just like you can see it here. Another thing with the workflows is that you also need to make sure that in the workflows, you are allowing access to the files of the users. So when you go to the workflow editor, you actually see here that you can open the job. And we save all the files on the position on the item level. Because of that, you would need to change your workflow templates in order to give access to the vendors automatically so they can download the files that BeLazy has downloaded for you. We are doing this, we are saving everything on the item level because we have lots of customers who are using a so-called project bundling that you will also see here. So now the first thing I need to do is log off because actually we are impersonating a user here and copy the URL for my customer system, which is belazybeta.plunet.com, and create a connection within BeLazy. So what you see here is the BeLazy user interface. URL, username, password, simple as that. You can log into BeLazy using Microsoft or Google accounts. So BeLazy is analyzing this for a little while, and then it finds that this is actually a Plunet portal. So, hey, I can automate that. But the system doesn't know automatically what is the number format, and this is something that you need to select for it. This was the comma, the decimal comma, instead of the decimal point in this case. These are all like most of the preparations, so not a lot of things to do. So what we need to do here is give an API user credential. This is something that takes a little while to configure because you need to give that all the rights and so on. But after that, you just have a username and a password for the API user. And we recommend using the super admin. And then BeLazy identifies that. And what we need to do right now is just indicate what holds something that is, we call it specialization, which is the field that holds this information. Here, in our case, is the area of expertise / sector, which is the default setup at Plunet. Plunet is very customizable, so because of that, you need to do a couple of things for preparation. You also need to make sure that the resources have access to this, and the resources have access also to the source language list, because otherwise we cannot read it, and then just copy it here, the name. And you click next, and that's about it. So after a little thinking and trying, BeLazy realized that, hey, I've created a connection to your Plunet. So now the next step is to actually map the two together. I mean, BeLazy is a translator of project management information. So what it does is that it extracts all the project management information, all the metadata from the source system, which is the demo beta system, to the target system, which is in our case, the demo alpha. So on the right side, you will normally see the target, and on the left side, you will see the source system values. So the first thing we need to see is who is my customer. So if I'm taking projects from this Plunet instance, who should I select as a customer in my Plunet instance? The second thing is who's going to be the project manager? Paul Leiter, of course. Here is the, on the right side, you see the area of specialization. And on the left side, you see those that are coming from the vendor portal of Plunet 7.4, of my client's vendor portal. And I need to map things. And I put IT to engineering, and I get general, but I don't have general in my system, so I'm putting it to dummy. So every general project I'm getting is going to get dummy in my system. Now, the next thing is the templates. So we can use project templates, order templates, sorry, in Plunet. But in order to use that, you need to actually give it the number. And how do you see the number? This is the template I'm using. You see number 4 over there in the URL. This is basically how we can refer to it. Now BeLazy is using this order template. Now comes the workflow configuration, and this is probably the most complicated and the most interesting thing here. Because what you see is that now I selected for the translation step that is coming from my customer system, a step that is called, a workflow that is called T plus QA in my system. And there are 5 different icons here. One is to create receivables for the item, that is what my customer pays, payables, for which job do I have to pay, when to assign linguists, never in Plunet, when to close the origin step, and when to upload files. So basically in this scenario, I'm going to do a translation and the quality assurance every time my customer asks for translation. And I'm only delivering the files and closing the project once the quality assurance is done, not after the translation is done. Next thing is the TEP. I'm going to select here translation, editing, and proofreading, a 3-step thing. And for TEP, I'm just going to use translation here. But first, I'm like here configuring, this would be a 3-step workflow where editing is paid and the files only go back after proofreading. But instead of doing that, I'm going to use this bundling of different activities. So TEP will go together with proofreading and editing. So TEP will be the translation step of the translation, editing, proofreading scenario, whereas proofreading is going to be the 3rd step and editing is going to be the 2nd step. You can see the axis. You can combine multiple incoming things into one workflow in your Plunet. And there is one more that we did not map, which is this temp, do not use. Wherever I do it, doesn't matter. So now we need to look into the rates and units. These are the price lines on the right side that are extracted from your Plunet, and the price lines on the left side are extracted from your customer's Plunet. So there are a couple of things we need to add, such as words. We need to add hours of DTP, hours of engineering. Some of it was guessed by BeLazy, which is fine. And there is also the way to handle the minimum fees and the discounts. BeLazy actually doesn't require the other system to deal with minimum fees. We can identify if the sum that displays in a portal is not the same as the multiplication and the summing up of all the fuzzy lines. And then we say, like, this is either a minimum fee or a discounted fee, depending on the difference, and then map it correctly into the right fields. Next thing is languages. Most important thing with languages is always the sub-languages, because here you've got English. English is mapped to English, but maybe in your system, your price lines are set up for English United States. And that's what we are going to do. We will map English to English USA here. After that, you have French, where let's say you don't have the indication of the language in the price list or the locale in the price list, and German, and so on and so forth. And there are some language independent tasks that have been outsourced to you as well. You need to select a language for that as well in this scenario. We don't support language independent workflows, but you can just put it anywhere, like I'm putting it to the last language in the list. Bundling is what allows you to merge different steps together. And this is the project name. So you can actually, this is the order's name, and you can change this order name as you like. If you want to add, for example, BeLazy automation into every order, you can do that. And these are all the things, all the metadata that are extracted from the source system, which is Plunet. So I can add the company name, I can add the due date, I can add the languages, contact person, job type, currency, whatever you want. This was adding the project name because my customer shared this with me. Next topic is files, which is not very interesting here, but for example, if you save the emails that automatically into the folders, then you don't want to upload that and you can prevent it. And this is interesting, the instruction mapping, because there are different text fields in Plunet that you share internally with the PMs or also with the vendors, such as the job description. And you are able to compose this right here, also taking into account the source information. So when you press the @ sign, or when you enter the @ sign, you can, for example, enter the work instructions as they came from the client's Plunet portal. But besides that, you can also add text, so steps to follow, and then come the work instructions as extracted by the system. And then you can also add some other things there. These are all the values that are available. So for example, the brief description can come here as well for the vendor. When you are working with TMSs, this is where normally the URLs will come. And let's click finish, and we have done our first setup. That was it. Now the system is synchronizing. Synchronization means when it's trying to fetch the new projects, and when it's also looking into your Plunet for any changes. And what you will see is that very soon, under approvals pending, new projects will appear. You can see there on the header 8 projects from one connection. And there is the last one, which obviously is the only one that is interesting here. And this is the one that shows like the language pair, the number of words, total words, weighted words. And you can also see that the details of this project, like this is a job type TEP, they are paying 18.5 euros. And you can approve, and when you approve it, you actually generate it in your system. It's got files, so also the files will be downloaded for you. It takes a couple of seconds for the project to be created, and this is happening right now. So the project has already been created, but it's not fully ready, but now you can see it's fully ready. So let's just check out what we did. We were using the translation editing proofreading, a workflow template. LSP customer was selected. The name is actually composed as we set it up. The price is there. The project manager is selected. This was combined by our instruction and by the template. The PO number is entered. The area of expertise sector is dummy. The order date is now, but the order deadline is something that came from the customer system. The languages are added. One was actually in the template here, and the other one was added now. And also all the details of the analysis were taken over from the customer system. Besides that, also the job list was created. So the 3 steps were created. The work volume is indicated because only the first one was actually taken. This was TEP, so we didn't have an editing or a proofreading for this project. So only the first step was actually filled in from my workflow. And then what we can do is that we are able to open up now the job information. We will assign a resource. The area of expertise, sector, and everything else was allowed. The source files are there. So you can see that this is the file that I uploaded earlier. These are called test file 1 and 2. Also, the PO is downloaded. And now we open up the job and assign a resource. It's going to be Mr. Belmondo. Project is in progress. And let's pretend we got back the files from the translator. So we upload the files, which are basically here, the translated files. What do we expect? We expect that this is going to go back into the customer system. Once we click deliver, we synchronize just to be on the safe side here. And then after a couple of seconds, this actually I edited out because it was almost a minute. The files are going to be uploaded back and the project will try to close. Now, what happened is that I didn't realize, but I set up the project in my Plunet in a way that it was not possible to close even manually. Probably you are more familiar with this than I am, as I'm only using it mostly for demoing. So what you see here is that from deliveries pending, the project went into the delivered within the last few days. You can see when it was delivered. And even though it remained in progress, when I log in as the user into this Plunet instance, looking for the password, then I will see here that the files have been uploaded. And if it had been possible to close this job here under the delivery tab, then BeLazy would have done that, also checking the checkboxes and so on and so forth. So the files are here, and that's the first demo. This is not the next thing that I wanted to show you. Sorry about that. Let's look at how to make this whole thing faster, unless anybody has questions. So there are a couple of ways to make the system much more agile. First of all, you can set up auto-approve rules, which basically means that certain types of projects you are always getting. Let's not wait with anybody to take it. Create it in your Plunet and accept it in your customer's Plunet automatically. So let's say if the target language contains German, then I'm going to take the project, but I can also specify it further. I also can say that I don't want to take very small projects or very large projects, sorry. So I'm only taking projects that are smaller or equal to 1,000 weighted words. But I'm not taking any urgent projects. So I'm only interested in projects that at least are offered for 36 hours of deadline, 1 day and 12 hours. I'm just specifying the rule a little bit more to make it more understandable. And all these projects are going to be automatically approved. So those where I have a day and 12 hours and less than 1,000 words. Another thing I can do is I can set up my Microsoft account. Sorry, here it's like the grabbing did not grab my Microsoft authentication window. So any Outlook, any free Outlook or any kind of other Outlook system can be set up here to be monitored. And what you can do is that you can actually bind the synchronization to an incoming email. You get email notifications. And basically, what you want to do is save these, see these projects within BeLazy within seconds. And that's what we are going to do now. It's going to click synchronize whenever I'm putting any kind of an email into the Plunet folder under my inbox. So I'm just pulling it through to make it like as if I was receiving an email. And look, within 10 seconds, you will see that little icon starts to spin. And when it spins, this is when the automation is kicking in. So it's now looking into the new projects and applying the auto approval rules. So it's working still. It has been triggered by the test email, and it's done now, but it has not taken any project for one reason. That was because of the deadline being in the past. So moving on to this, let's have a look at how we work with a translation management system, which is Localize in my case. I have taken Localize because it's a fairly simple to understand system, and there are no licensing issues or anything that prevents it from being relatively snappy. But of course, I will show you a couple of other systems as well. So Localize works on the basis of keys, and you can add a connection to a TMS just the same way as you added a connection to your vendor portal using URL, username, password, simple as that. In this scenario, obviously, I could not really demonstrate jobs coming from the customer, but it's the same thing as what you see here. So in order to work with Localize, you need to get a API key, which every person who is using Localize is allowed to do that. So you go to API tokens and simply take it or generate it. That's all. The connection is done to Localize, and now it's extracting the values from Localize and Plunet at the same time. In the meantime, I can show you that Localize works with projects, which contain keys. And we are going to use the project that is called Plunet Webinar, which currently has French and Spanish. There are two keys in this, Translate 1 and Translate 2 with the text. And in order to use the integration, you need to create and assign the tasks. So let's create a task which is fairly simple. We will get everything translated. The task is going to be called Plunet May 2022 Webinar. There's a little description that this is a small task. We set up a deadline for Saturday, and it's a translation type task. We lock translations and include admins as assignees. This is important for the integration to work. And we select the target languages, which are French and Spanish. And you can see that the only contributor is us. Here in Localize, the contributors are bound not to a task, but to projects and languages. So that's something to bear in mind. So who is the customer? It's Engineering Inc. And now I'm going to show you how BeLazy handles both bundling and exception handling. So you've seen like a very easy run-of-the-mill type project earlier, but BeLazy can handle an infinite number of exceptions, because what is project management about is if not exceptions. Unfortunate, but true. So all the exceptions are actually depending on certain metadata in the client systems. So for example, here we can take the project name, because certain projects are from one customer, other projects are from other customer. So what I'm going to do is that if the project name is Plunet Webinar, then in Plunet select giveaways as medical devices limited as the customer. Otherwise select Engineering Inc. Who is the project manager? Paul Leiter, of course. But again, we can also say that Paul Leiter doesn't like stress. So if the deadline is, let's say, within 5 days of work or whatever number of days, then Paul Leiter is not going to take it, 5 days, but it's going to be assigned to Sonny Corleone. Sonny is the specialist in quick turnaround time projects. Well, 5 days are not so quick, but anyways. This is just the specialization. Again, the template in Plunet, and what to do with single-step translation projects. In Localize, we also support translation and review projects, not just this, but in this demo, I'm going to show you that. What's special here? What's special here is that there are linguist assignments, contributors. That's an important thing because people work online. Therefore, I actually assign not only once, but twice for each step in my Plunet project. Now we are looking into the different fields with the rates, where, for example, these are not exactly the same as what we got in Plunet. So 95+%, we don't have anything. So we need to find a place, what kind of price line to use if Localize gives us a 95+% project. And this is very interesting because this is the first time we see the linguist assignment. So on the left, you see all the linguists that are coming from Localize. These are already established users in my Localize projects. And on the right, I'm seeing all of them from Plunet. So if I select Hans and Peter in Plunet, then it's going to be Logan and Angela. But I can also say that if BeLazy is not able to find the right person, then create users in Localize directly with the full name. This is the bundling. So what we want to do is that these are like small batches. So instead of doing like one order for each batch, we want to have a monthly order for each project. And we can do that. We say that project name must be the same, then it goes into a monthly order, and the month of the creation must be the same as well. And when it comes to mapping, for example, what's within the job chain, we can map it by parent task ID, or the task title must be identical, and then we will map things into the job chain as well, not only the order. So here is the name, and now the name is a bit misleading because we have monthly orders. We cannot use the task's name because it's going to be misleading. So instead of that, we need to use the project name and the month in order to specify that we are talking here about the Plunet webinar project for May. And you put together the naming convention like this. This is not interesting because we don't deal with files here. And then finally, what you see here is that you can also get an item description. This is what will appear every time next to an item. This is what you call an item, more or less. And you can put in here whatever information you want. So why don't we put in like when this batch is starting, when was it given to us? What's the name of this task in Localize, and even a word count would be handy. This way we can always identify which task this belongs to, this item belongs to, how to trace it back to the original project, right? And this is the item comment. And I'm interested in keys, count, links, as all those things, but I'm not very interested in whether it's possible to auto-close the task or auto-close the languages in Localize. So I'm just going to delete this part. So it's something that we have some defaults that are also perfectly editable. You can see that the links are coming from here. That's one of the big benefits of BeLazy. It's actually extracting links to files, to projects, to everything, and you don't need to worry about it. So we're done. What happens now? A synchronization, and we expect to see our task that we just created. And then you can also sort by, or like group by the connection and sort by the deadline, like I'm doing it. And you can see what kind of tasks there are. There is one task of translation for French, one task for Spanish. And even from here, if I click here, you can see that it opens Localize at the right place with French, and the other one would open Localize at the right place with the Spanish target language. This is what the translators will get as links, so directly taking them to the right place in the system. Now let's approve this task. It disappears from one list and it gets into the deliveries pending. And I can search for it. Unfortunately, you cannot open the task directly from BeLazy because of Plunet security. With other systems we can, but you will be able to find it quickly under the status report. So what we see here is that actually if the price, like the name of the item to be in relation to what we set up under instructions, we've got the link for that project, we've got the word count. You could see that one is no match, the other one was 100% match. And then you can select the resource here. Again, we will go for a manual assignment. Of course, you can also go for these different rounds. And the project is now in progress. And I actually selected Angela Logan instead of Peter Hansen. Sorry about that, that's my mistake. I wanted to show you that if you select Peter Hansen, then Angela Logan is going to be selected. But now what you will see is that if you selected Angela Logan is going to be selected. So what I want to do while we are waiting for a bit of synchronization is to add a new key, add an update that the customer sends you so that you can see how the project, how a monthly project works. So I'm going to create a new key here, translate 3 it is called, with some value to be translated. While my colleagues are working on this, I'm able to see and create a new task out of this. I need to remove the filter. So yeah, you see that now it's altogether 3 keys in the project. And I need to create a task for myself by clicking on new task. This is the same thing as what we've done before. Needs a title and maybe a description, due date, simple, right? Task options are the same. And we add the project languages. And look, we already have 2 contributors for French. Angela Logan has been done, selected. This is not on a task level in localize, it's on the language level. So therefore, even for the new task, you have the old contributors and vice versa. So cool. Let's do a synchronization in order to see whether this new job has appeared. And of course it has. There is the updated key for webinar, 6 words, 2 times 3, with link, with languages, with so on and so forth. Let's approve it and let's see how BeLazy is creating a new item within the same project. So 100% matches, and here you go. 3rd item into French, 4th item into Spanish. And all of this with delivery and job closure and everything included. So here into Spanish, again, I can add the resource for Mr. Belmondo. Like, let's just go into the manual assignment, which I sometimes forget to do. And let's click on assign. So after the next synchronization, which can take a little while, what we expect is that for the Spanish language, Jean-Paul Belmondo's user is going to be added or created. I thought I actually assigned him to the French one, but then I realized I was wrong. So let's just reload the page. It was only Angela Logan. And after reloading the page once more, you can see that for Spanish, the new user has appeared. And the same goes for delivering the tasks. So that can also be delivered automatically. I just didn't want to show you how to like translate in localize and like log in with other users. That was not my goal at this point. So maybe a few other things. Just a very short SmartLink demo. In SmartLink, you are able to select all of these different values, and you can create, for example, different customers based on the SmartLink project names. And as you can see, I'm not showing everything by now. And what you can also do is you can also assign users to the SmartLink resources, just like you've seen it with Localize. And you can also do the listing of all of these projects and accepting all of these projects. So if you have a need for a SmartLink integration, that's also working very well. And another thing I quickly wanted to show you is something interesting with MemoQ. This is a MemoQ setup where the first page is about what project should not be created in Plunet. And the reason for that is that, of course, if you have a MemoQ manager that creates the Plunet project in MemoQ, you don't want to create a new project in Plunet from that. So you can set it up. Here you are able to work just the same way as with every other system. And you can see multiple workflows. So you can actually separate multiple workflows in MemoQ as well based on a description and set up different workflows in Plunet for that. These are the matches, which I have set up correctly. Here I didn't start from scratch. You can see the users on the left side have been created and you can assign them. Bundling also works. And finally, something that is probably interesting for many of you is that if you want to use the application, the desktop application, you can also share the checkout link, not only the translation link. And you can also say that if you want to work with packages, instead of giving the link for those projects, you want to tell the translator where to download the package from. You could also do different instructions for different languages. And then this is the MemoQ setup in a nutshell. Now, the next thing I suggest you do, and apologies for this here, is to import a package into MemoQ, because sometimes you get these 50 language packages with a lot of analysis not being the same, and creating them in Plunet is a nightmare, right? So what you can do is that you can import this, and apologies because here the screen recorder didn't record what I was doing in the other screen of MemoQ, which was the package import screen. But in a second, what you will see is that you are going to have the package appear right below this list. And I imported the package with like 12 languages. You see a package project with many languages, but not many segments. And then finally, this is how you create that using the MemoQ integration. Here is the project. You can see the many languages. You just create it. It takes a little while, but as you can see, it's many items with different analysis. Oops, and there were some errors. We didn't talk about the red flags. Red flags is for error handling. So sometimes you got a problem because in this, we don't know what kind of value to assign to the domain ID, subject ID combination among the specializations. And Germany is not a language that we have assigned in our language list. So we need to fix these mapping errors by putting in the right people. Sorry, I slipped here. And so putting in the right values, not the right people. And then after that, BeLazy can go on and create the projects. This is what's happening now. All the doubts, all the questions have been resolved. Now the system is creating this project of altogether 540 words for all these different languages. So let's just jump into it. Let's find it here by having a look at the new orders, updating the search, and you can see that the package project has been imported. Sorry about these 0 values. It's just that I didn't configure the price list correctly. If you do it right, then you are going to get the prices automatically updated. So all of these different languages have been added to a new item with the same or different TM matches. And what's probably more interesting is that actually the links are relating to the different language versions as well. So what you can do now is actually look into, for example, what the translator gets. And here the translation link for Japanese is going to take the translator directly into the Japanese project. So you see here on the top, you can see that this is English Japanese, and you don't need to tell all of this information to your vendors.